Hello.
Hey, Shinshin. I heard you
Hi.
okay. I was just on mute. Good to see you again.
Yep. Are you standing?
Yes. Hey, Remy.
Hi, Remy.
Hello.
We'll give Albert another minute or so and go ahead and get started.
Sure.
I say we jump into it. We'll catch him up. I know it's late. Maybe he's not able to make it. Okay, there he is. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with the social discussion. I thought this would be a nice change of pace from last week's What Olympic sport. So this one, if you had a time machine, what time period would you like to travel to? And rules forward or backwards, so you can go either direction. For me, I think it would be pretty cool to see, like, go back to ancient Egypt and kind of see like the construction of some of the pyramids and just some of the massive buildings that they were able to construct with way less technology, just to observe how that was done. Remy, what about you?
Yeah. Ancient Egypt is a good one because it's still a mystery how they built the pyramids. Yeah. I don't know. For me, maybe I would like to travel like in the future. I don't know why. Just to see how it would be. But then if I would travel in the future, I think I would choose like very far in the future, like not in a few hundred years, but a few thousand years. And maybe I will be alone, like the only human. But yeah, I don't know. Because, so either I will be alone because humanity would have been like disappeared from Earth, or maybe humanity would have gone into space. Yeah. I don't know, frankly. But that's a fun question. Mark isn't here, I guess. So maybe Albert has a good answer to that.
I don't know. I guess for me it would be probably like the Middle Ages, like 1000-ish, because I feel like in Asia there's not a lot of history that goes back to that period. So I'm curious, like what happened in those years, like in Asia or like Australia, or even like the entire Asia Pacific, like Australia, New Zealand. I don't know what happens there. Like we read a lot about like the European medieval ages, but not so much about Asia.
Interesting.
Yeah, how about Chanchin?
I think I'm mostly curious about the future. That two things. One is that how the tech will evolve into. Like, if those sci-fi stories could be true, can those tech be true, or there will be some other different techs? And the other is how tech impact how people live. Like, now we have computers, so our life are much different than in the past, and how those new tech will impact how people live, and also how people think about tech, because there's always people who don't really like advanced tech, and where will those people go? Will they still live without tech, or they will move on and be more advanced, or they will disappear?
That's interesting. Awesome. This was probably one of the better questions in a while. That was pretty fun. I appreciate everybody sharing. Moving into the announcements, just a few quick ones. There's two department updates this week to be aware of, and I think pretty much everybody's provided feedback, but the group conversation is tomorrow, and the engineering key review is today. I linked to the agenda as well as the MR with a lot of the KPI updates. So please review those as you have time, and as always, everything's kind of in draft, so you can always just make changes and make it better. Next item is please try to prioritize or work with me if you need extra time to find a diversity, inclusion, and belonging activity that you're interested in. This does tie to our Q2 OKRs for the department. I've been trying to figure out how I can do like a Big Brother program locally with COVID, and then looking for a backup just of a DNI ERG here at the company. So please try to find something that aligns with what you feel passionate about, and let me know if you need to take a day or take time away from work to do it.
This is a local, like so we should find a local activity, am I right?
So it doesn't have to be local. I think what some of the other department members are doing is just joining an ERG that aligns with their interests. I wanted to do something local just to kind of connect a little bit more with the community. That's why I chose that program. But because of COVID, like I had kind of started those discussions in March, and they were like, we're not taking anyone because pandemic, and now they're trying to figure out how to change it. So if you have an opportunity locally and you feel passionate about it, I support you to do it. If not, an ERG is an option to look at within GitLab. And then anything else on that?
What is ERG? Is it a meeting?
Yeah, so there's meetings. It's an employee resource group. So it's just like they'll have meetings usually once a month or once every few months. That's kind of related to. I'll add a link. That's related to the what the employee resource group kind of represents. Sorry, I was trying to find. We'll take up a link here. Okay. Anything else on that? Great. Okay. Another week, another 360 feedback update. I saw this morning that the peer review period actually got extended to Wednesday. So another short-term extension. If you haven't provided feedback and are still looking for the opportunity to, please feel free to leverage that. The next few steps are that I'll be reviewing and sending results by Friday of this week. So releasing the surveys to you after I go through them. And then I'll set up an additional discussion from our normal one-on-one during the week of the July 6th through the weeks of July 6th through the 20th, and to review and discuss feedback with you all. I was happy to, I wasn't happy, but I woke up this morning thinking like, I wonder if they extended the deadline, and sure enough, it was, I kind of chuckled when I saw that. So lastly, and I mentioned the team on this earlier today, I opened a documentation MR for deprecating Backstage. It's currently in draft. Can use a review and feedback. Remy, thank you already for the review and feedback. I'm trying to target wrapping up all of our team's feedback for Thursday and then broadcast it further. So please try to get me feedback before then, if possible. Otherwise, we'll just take it whenever we can get it. So thank you. All right, moving into the agenda. I did want to talk about MR rate because it kind of came together a little bit faster than what I anticipated. We were like reviewing it, and then it was like, let's just ship it. So I did want to bring it to everyone's attention. I know it was talked about in the department call as well. I want to reiterate that this is not an individual measure, but kind of a department level measure. and apologize for not making the team aware that this was even happening until it was done. So that's something I'll look to do better in the future. And then just wanted to open up for questions. Jinshin, I see you have the first one. Do you want to vocalize it just for the recording?
Oh, so I was curious about my ID because I saw Remy ID is 43, very obvious, and I'm wondering what's my number, and I cannot find myself. So I'm wondering.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
42 for you.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the way that part works, and I know you were in an earlier one because I confirmed all of the team members are, and I just think once the last adjustment was made, I must have missed this. But my understanding is you should be in there. It looks at employees. It looks at MRs that are authored by employees that have a department of quality. It's coming in from Bamboo. So I will track that down. I really appreciate you pointing that out.
So I do have another question. I didn't wrote it, but yeah. I'm wondering if the department is the right level for viewing this data. Like, basically, we don't have the same responsibilities as SETs, and we're not working on the same things, and maybe having this high-level quality department MR rate is I don't know, is blurring, is maybe it's too averaged, and like I didn't look at the numbers, so let's take the assumption that for instance our team has an MR rate of 10, let's say, but the average is 5. Then we could decide to take actions for the whole department, even if like our team is already at a good pace, let's say. Yeah, I will stop there talking and let you like answer me, because I don't want to talk too much. But yeah, I think you see the idea.
Yeah. So the thing I'll call attention to is this is really the first iteration of this with the development MR rate. They look at that as that gets drilled down further to section groups. I think we will look to evolve the same just to help get that insight. So as we're starting to look at what are some corrective actions that we can do to raise this, how does it look across all the teams, so we can try and identify bottlenecks, I'll say, or different areas. I agree with the general assumption there that the way that we would influence increasing our MR rate is going to be quite different than the rest of the department.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure aligning to the development org is the right workaround, but I kind of look at it as getting insight to each of the teams within quality will kind of help reveal more information to ask better questions.
Yeah, I think it should be grouped by teams, teams basically, because in the end I think it's like the manager who is kind of driving this MR rate, I would say, like trying to understand what can be improved and all of that, because the manager has the high level view of the team. And yeah, at the department level, and the opposite example that I gave just before is that, for instance, if we decide in the engineering productivity team to, if we want to increase our rate, maybe we will manage to increase it, but it will not reflect at the department level if the rest of the department doesn't do anything special.
Yeah. I think this is good discussion, good thoughts looking ahead. I don't have a really good answer for you at the moment, other than we need more information to help identify identify better areas to focus. And I definitely agree that what you're saying, that the way that different teams can influence increasing their MR rate is going to be different, especially when you look at our team compared to the rest of the department.
Yeah.
So
and to be clear, I'm not like saying that we have an awesome MR rate and the rest of the department is bringing us down. It's just that it's yeah, basically it's the whole department, so it's average a lot. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing I call attention to is like we can support if your hypothesis is true, like it's our responsibility to help support like enabling them to do work faster, whether that's through making pipeline on call a little bit easier, just different mechanisms that we've talked about to help reduce the amount of time it takes for the SETs to get work merged.
Yeah.
Albert, how about the next question here?
Yeah, just curious. I saw some private projects in the list. So like if we contribute to other projects like personal private projects or other GitLab, other groups, do we need to exclude them manually or something?
Yeah, so I think there should not be private projects in the first table, which is projects included. And I'll just share real quick so that it's so that we're looking at the same thing. So I think here the projects included in MR rate. I don't think there should be private projects in here. If so, it might be a problem with the query and that it's pulling the wrong MR project ID, like it's pulling from where the MR is opened instead of the target. Down here, this is looking at all MRs authored by everyone who's in scope. And that's why these private projects are showing up. I don't think they need to be excluded. I'm not going to say that work needs to be done differently, but they're not. In general, they likely aren't being counted anyways.
Okay.
Does that help? Does that help explain?
Not quite. So I think my question is, so if let's say I were to contribute to another like a private project, do I need to specifically list down like these are the projects that need to be excluded from this calculation?
Nope. Yeah, so we're looking at all projects that is part of product, true, and that list was actually expanded as a part of this MR, like the creation of this MR rate, to add some of the quality projects that we that we work in. So like GitLab QA is an example. There's a constrained list of projects that feed into the calculation.
All right.
So nothing that you should need to do to say exclude these projects.
Okay.
Yeah, an additional feedback about this, it's related, just a detail, but I think in the second table, the projects excluded, we should filter for the GitLab com and GitLab org groups only, because all the other projects shouldn't be relevant. Like I saw a project of mine, like it's a personal project, and I don't feel like very fine having this personal project listed here, even if it's just for information, but I don't want everyone to see that. Yeah, even if the project is public. Yeah, just a side note.
Okay, I can open an issue just to talk about that within the pattern, like the dashboard pattern that's being rolled out across.
Okay, because this is like all the dashboards will have the same patterns, right?
Yeah. So this is happening at every department under engineering and engineering. So we're all of these dashboards are getting developed. Quality just happened to be first, because since we worked with the development MR rate, we thought it would be a good candidate to try first. And UX, I think UX just finished theirs. We'll have security infrastructure. Every single department will have this. It'll be, and as these dashboards are being created, I think I'm most interested to see how the development MR rate, which is not author-based, changes, because we're going to be adding a lot of projects.
Yeah, but I think what Remy's concern also applies to all the other department team members. Like, probably everyone else also contributes to other projects, and they may not want their projects to be listed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll open an issue
Yeah.
to discuss it and mention the team. I agree. The other thing to consider is I know this might be a hot topic, but I know that there's work being done to kind of split like personal and work usage of GitLab away from your user ID. So if it's associated with personal work, might be something you want to consider moving towards a different GitLab user. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just saying that's something to consider as well. I will open the issue though to look at changing the dashboard.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this? Or just discussion in general? Okay. Moving on to team refinement activities. I merged the MR that was, I'll say, the first iteration of documenting prioritization activities and linked to it here last week. I was going to try to do this for 13.2, but I think we were just a little too late. So I'm going to target 13.3 for trying to follow those schedules and see where there's friction or see where it breaks. And as a part of this, I'm experimenting in Sisense and the product to see how we can better identify the amount of planned versus unplanned work that we do within a release, because I think that'll help inform how full should the release be. Right now, it's more it's more of an art than a science, and that's not the world that I like to live in if I can avoid it. So, any questions on that? Okay. Remy, on to the next item here.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a first version of time zone based reviewer roulette suggestions. So you can see in the merge request below an example. For now, the strategy is to choose someone for which the local hour is between 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. so that hopefully the person will get to the merge request in their working day, in their work day. And so yeah, any feedback on that is welcome. And you can see in the roulette message, I display also the time zone of the reviewers and the difference compared to the author time zone, like 2 hours ahead or before the author. So yeah, any feedback on that?
Maybe just one weird feedback that 2 p.m. is probably around the time I start working. But maybe that's fine, because then I can see their merge request when I start working. It's just, it won't be real time.
Yeah, I think the idea is to prevent assigning someone that is like at the end of a classical workday, like 5 p.m. or something like that. So I think that should still work for you, yeah.
Yep.
And maybe that's a next iteration is figure out if there's a way to signal my working hours. I know that's something that can be added in Slack, but I think it's a free-form text field. So something that we can improve on in the future. What does everyone think of the duplicate, like having it twice? I think that was a suggestion I passed on to Remy yesterday. Like we can just add it to the existing recommendation. You want any feedback on that?
So, sorry, what do you mean by duplicate?
So there's like the original reviewer roulette recommendation and then an additional experimental time zone based one. So it's like doubled.
Yeah.
I
And
think it will confuse people.
I think it's confusing.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could, so right now I did that, like the duplicates, and maybe we could either like default, like show the time zone based one and then put the legacy one in like a detail block. If, I don't know, so that people can still use it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Just to add some more detail here is I didn't want to just go all in on time zone and overload reviewers and maintainers in certain time zones until we have a better idea of how this change kind of impacts the metrics that are there.
I'm thinking that maybe we can extend the cell so there's two people in one cell, like one is primary and the other is secondary. It might be a bit messy, like, but I think it will be less confusing.
Another feedback, I think it's about the communicating this change and the reason behind it. Like I think I've heard quite a few feedback about people are not clear why they are being recommended by Roulette. So like one was a backend engineer being recommended for the test category. So and then also similarly for maintainer for EP. So yeah, I think we need to inform in advance.
Yeah, I should. I will update the documentation also, and probably link to it, like document the strategy that is used. But yeah, I will also communicate. But yeah, for the moment, yeah, I haven't communicated because we haven't chosen the solution. But yeah, definitely, that's a really good point.
The other thing is, let's make sure, and when we communicate, say like, here's where to provide feedback. So have like a clear place for feedback.
Yeah, so for now, I linked to the issue for taking time zone in accounts, but I don't know if you want to create a new issue or not.
I'll leave it up to you.
Okay.
On that. Should we handle the format of the message, just async on the issue, just add the feedback, or the MR, add the feedback to the MR, and then see what makes sense. The reason why I specifically brought that up is I looked at it and it just seemed very long, like a long message. So a little bit different than I had in my mind, even though I think I just wasn't thinking through it.
Yeah, let's take it async, and I will try to gather a few feedback from a few people just to get like an idea of what other people think. Yeah, I will. But yeah, let's continue async. Okay. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, I thought it was really good how it came together. So like a lot of everything behind it looks really, really good. I think it's just kind of putting the final touches on it. Unless I might be missing something, but that's the impression I got this morning. Okay. Is there anything else anyone would like to talk about? I kind of put this on here just in the event that there wasn't anything else that anyone wanted to raise. Okay. So just to reiterate some of the problems that I saw in the when we were looking at triage serverless, or some of the, I shouldn't say problems, but just where I was confused, is I was really unsure why certain things that were running in the cluster were running, And I listed out some questions on that issue. In general, and just to summarize, to try to be clear, because I think the original issue turned into me just saying, I'm trying this, trying this, trying this, trying this, and it's fixed. And never really kind of concisely said these were the things. So the two problems that looked like were happening was pulling the image failed because of the way that the Docker config JSON secret with that having username and password, they were being used for every single image pull, and it's likely that those credentials were either rotated or something changed with the credentials recently that made that part fail. And then the second thing that failed was that the cert expired. I think it was on the 3rd of July. So when the serverless function was getting created, the Istio sidecar container in the pod was failing to talk back to Istio because of HTTPS errors. So we regenerated, Junshin and I regenerated that cert on Friday, and things started to behave again, kind of after, I think, like a minute or so of everything getting healthy. So those were the two issues. A number of the things that just confused me were the health of some of the things in the cluster and the deployments that were there, like Remy, like you linked to. I was just unsure of any automated process around this. So Remy, let's jump into your point around stale deployments, and then I think we just handle the rest of this async as I'm looking at this issue. Like, let's just kind of go through these questions afterwards and give everyone else time back.
Yeah, I mean, my point is it's actually probably the same as you. Just confused by these stale deployments. I looked at the logs, and like maybe half of them are like the last log is like the pod is shut down, like it's showing a goodbye message, so it's really not used anymore. Like I think it was on 19th, so it was last week, probably when you fixed the problem. And there are other deployments that actually have the error from last week, like couldn't find spec helper file or something like that. And there is only one deployment that is actually doing work. And yeah, I'm also confused because I'm not familiar with this serverless setup. I'm confused at these stale deployments. So yeah,
I share that confusion. I was unsure as to why these deployments stay out. If it was something that we have to programmatically tear everything down when we deploy something new, or if that was handled as a part of the deployment process, where it brings the old version, the pods tied to the old version of the function down when the new deployment's there. So that was a little surprising, I'll say. We can do a one-time cleanup, but it might be better to focus on figuring out how to schedule a cleanup if that's needed. The other thing I did want to call attention to, because it was probably buried, that spec helper error that you saw last week. I think that was from a very old version. So when I looked at those pods, the version of the serverless function it was using was like a year old. So there are deployments that have been that were like the deployment object themselves, and I'll try to tie that in, but that XDLVM deployment, I think I'll have to try and hunt through that, but I had identified the version just by getting a remoting into the pod and seeing what was going on. So
okay, so basically in that case the problem is the same, is that we have stale deployments basically. Otherwise you would have only like one running deployment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess what concerns me is I don't understand the service layer well enough to know when a webhook is processed, if we have these old deployments, could an old version of the serverless function actually be handling those webhook events and not necessarily doing all the reactions that we're looking for? That's the thing that I'd say I was most concerned about and unsure how to figure it out.
That remind me that when I was adding features into it, it took some time to reflect the new changes. So when I deploy something new and I tried it, and it's always behaving the old behavior, and I was wondering why it doesn't show, and then a few minutes later it start changing to a new behavior.
Should we pull someone from the serverless team maybe? Because it seems that we lack some knowledge here.
Yeah, it seems to me like there are multiple layers to it. I'm not very familiar with serverless, how it works, but looking at how we deploy, it seems like there is a command line wrapper, and then there's also Knative in it. So yeah, it seems. I think we should probably get someone to help.
Yeah, I'll ask Nick, just because serverless everything got consolidated into the configure group. So there was talks of things being split out, but now everything's in the configure group. So I'll ask the EM and say, hey, we just kind of need some help here, just as an FYI, and then also have some specific asks. I think the thing for me that I'm most unclear on is it the responsibility of us to clean up old deployments, or is that handled as a part of serverless deploy?
Yeah. And by the way, I see that there are also like test deployments, like test app hello, test func echo, and stuff like that. So I think we should probably also clean these up.
Where were you seeing those just as workloads?
Yeah, in the workloads, and they have GitLab KTL and then a namespace. So it's just something that I saw.
Yeah, I was not looking at the GitLab KTL integration cluster at all.
Yeah, just it looks like that, test deployments.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to just link to something that you guys have here. Okay. So I think for the specific questions, I will add either a new comment to every issue so that we can thread it, or just ask an issue. I'll take a look at everything. I'll work with Nick to find to get support from the configure group to just be able to provide us some insight versus interrupting the team like we did last week when it was down. And then I don't know what to do about the GitLab KTL namespace stuff. I think we do need to clean them up, but maybe a lower priority.
Yeah, and I just look at one, and it was created like yesterday. So it's, I don't know, it's strange.
I wonder if this is a cluster that someone in configure is using. So like if it was originally created under GitLab QA resources as a part of creating triage serverless, but now it's used for a different purpose. So I'll put that on the list to ask Nick, since it's on a completely different. My understanding is it's on a different cluster. It's not even a different.
Oh yeah, sorry. I didn't realize the workloads weren't filtered on the cluster. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, in that case, we don't need to care, I think. Yeah.
But I should look to understand who is using these.
Yeah, right. Because it's, GitLab QA resources should only be used by someone from the quality department.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I would agree there. Cool. Okay. So I will look to have a little bit more specific asks. The other thing I would ask of you all is if you have ideas on how we can prevent triage serverless, like essentially it being down for an unknown amount of time, like checking the uptime beyond what we have today, please add it to the issue that I linked at the top. The more and more we add to triage serverless, the more important it is that it is up and working, or at least having monitor to alert us a little better that it isn't. So I just want to reiterate that.
Yeah. Could we have like a function that just replies okay, something like that, and that we would ping regularly?
Yeah, I'm thinking about posting a link and then see if label will be added. If not, if it's not responding in 5 minutes, it's done.
Yeah. Any boring solution here I think would be good. So something that is simple and can give us more confidence in what we have today. I'm all for figuring out the right path forward there. If we can dog food some of the features eventually, that doesn't have to be like the first iteration, but if we work towards dog fooding monitor, even better. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what the team says there. Cool. Okay. That is it for me. I appreciate the collaboration here. Any other discussion or items anyone wants to raise?
No.
Great. I appreciate the time and hope you all have a good rest of your day. I'll let everyone know when I have the recording uploaded. See ya.
Thanks. Have a good day. Bye bye.